So any burning question to them, or do we want to go straight into the wider discussion perhaps, and not split it up, unless there's a burning question? That's fine, and it's great because you've managed your time so well that we've got 15 minutes left for really an interaction with you. And what we heard both from Christina and David is that creating a network of networks brings people together that, would traditionally not be together. And this is the example also of this meeting. The last one was in Korea and the one before in Montreal, and we are now among friends, and the trust level starts to build, and then there is more sharing, but hopefully there is also interaction happening in between the meetings. And what's very encouraging to see also is that tomorrow we will be already working on some of these things and working on the impact indicators. Biodiversity indicators today are very process orientated, and we heard it from the various speakers, mostly from the corporate side, are saying, yeah, but are we really measuring impact? And that's, I think, what with CBD and all the people that will be contributing to that meeting will try to get through on how can we really measure impact and then deliver hopefully some positive messages as well. And then, of course, the CBD is the link to the parties, the countries, and the governments. So we should use that mechanism and that tool to reach out to the countries. So I'm going to stop here and really would like to open up to the public. I've been monitoring to see if there are some questions coming, but I haven't. Yeah, there are some. So either there are some hands going to come up, or I will ask some questions. Yes, if we can have the microphone going all the way there.
Hello, thank you very much to all the speakers for excellent presentations yet again. Matt Smith, JNCC. As a question for Strahil, excellent work that BAT are doing with the framework there. We did something similar in the UK, but it was an ecosystem service spatial framework which went through the steps that enabled various users to do ecosystem service assessments. It was linked to our kind of maze contributions. The problem that we had was when we put it back to the users that they kind of understood the process, but what they didn't understand is what knowledge, information, data, and I don't want to labour the point about data, that they needed to actually make these assessments work. Now, I was wondering whether or not the platform has considered this within the knowledge framework you've actually developed, whether or not it gives an indication of what data or knowledge they would need, or indeed if once people start using that, are you going to make that knowledge available?
Thanks for your question. Just to clarify, the platform's work on, I imagine you're talking about the natural capital accounting work. It was more a guidance document to show existing methodologies and tools. It did not really develop a framework. There are definitions and principles in the guidance document, but it's the specific tools that essentially the guidance document and the tool just tells you what are the methodologies out there and what are the guidance documents out there, and they will undertake different approaches. Some of them focus on indicators, others not. But in 2015, we focused on links between public and private sector and finance sector, and one thing that we discussed there is how data could be shared between the sectors. It's something that we touched on yesterday. So to answer your question, no, not specifically under the platform work, but indirectly, yes.
But I like your intervention because, yes, there are best practices out there, but as we are continuing exchanging on these best practices, we can look then for continuous improvement. And hopefully some of the platforms, like the Natural Capital Coalition, are then also providing these platforms that allow for a continuous improvement of the various valuation methods. But what the European Business and Biodiversity Platform is really doing is helping to navigate through this jungle, because there are so many different natural capital approaches that it is very difficult to find your way. And we're all trying to come up with some decision trees that help businesses to find their way in that jungle. I saw one or two hands up. Yes, and this lady, I didn't allow you to speak earlier, so now you have the floor. And if you quickly introduce yourself as well, helpful.
Hello. Hello. No, it's not. Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm from Denmark. I'm Eva Juel Jensen, and from the Ministry of Food and Environment. I was very curious when I heard the Finnish initiative that you have had a meeting with the Parliament, and I think that's a very important target group also in order to promote this issue in a broader sense, because if we should do something about business and biodiversity, we need more policy awareness at that level. So if you could just elaborate about the experiences from your meeting with your Parliament, it would be interesting to hear. And with regard to the last speaker, I would also be happy to hear more about what is the status of the work on the sustainable tourism guidance. If you have any more information about that, it would be very interesting to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will take the first one. So the purpose of the visit was, it was really the environmental committee there and to upgrade on what is happening here, because of course the climate issues have been very visible and some of the members of the Parliament as persons have been very active in this area regardless of the positions of their parties. So we wanted to kind of bring up this important matter as well to the people. Of course they are representatives of their parties, but they are also individuals and they have their own opinions and agendas. And on the other hand, for the corporate representatives from the masterclass, it forced them to concentrate on key messages. Why are they there? What do they want from the members of the Parliament? So it was a good practice. It's a bit similar practice if they are asked to visit their CEOs and CEO asks that, what are you doing there? So kind of elevator speech on biodiversity. Thanks.
Yes, so the 10YFP has a program on sustainable tourism, and at the CBD we do also have area of work on sustainable tourism. Unfortunately, that person is not here today, so I can't really say anything about it. I'm happy to put you in touch, unless David maybe has anything to add.
Or Amy. Yeah, just very briefly, we do have, as Christine mentioned, a colleague who is dealing more or less exclusively with tourism. We have updated the CBD guidelines on sustainable tourism. Those are available on our website. And there will be also a stream for sustainable tourism at COP13. We'll be doing some events. Last year in Pyeongchang we had a full day event on this. We're going to be working out with our Mexican host how we'll be doing that. But there is active engagement with the tourism sector at the CBD with regards to biodiversity and with a number of partners.
Good. I see Marion with a question. Any other ones? And then George.
Yeah, I stay. Yeah, thank you. We all agree that it is a big challenge to get the SMEs on board. And in Germany, we are trying hard. The German Environmental Ministry created also an initiative which is called Unternehmen Biologische Vielfalt and dedicated to the associations, the business associations, the sector associations. And we are trying really hard. It's not easy, but to get them sensitized and via business associations to approach the members of all these associations. And my question is, what is your experience from the different initiatives? Do you approach business associations? What is the response? Because for me, it's nearby the only way to achieve or to approach a big number of SMEs. Thanks.
Thanks, Marion, for that question. Can I just take then George's question as well? And this will unfortunately close then the question sessions, as lunch is waiting for you after us.
Thank you. My name is George Yaksh. I work for Chiquita Brands, and I'm also here as chairman of Biodiversity Partnership Mesoamerica. My question concerns those areas where maybe those networks are not working as effectively as we might wish. And speaking particularly from the business perspective, we've heard wonderful presentations from a large number of companies during this conference, but I'm not too certain that we've heard of really effective sector-wide collaborations where a whole branch of industry and of activity gets together to join forces, share information, and make progress. And I do feel that that is a very essential step that we as businesses need to be prepared to make. As somebody from a business, I'm very aware that there are competitive pressures which stop us from doing that. But if we truly enable ourselves as companies to think of the great value of pre-competitive collaboration within a sector and then across sectors, then we're opening a whole new area of opportunity, of collaboration and of progress in this area. So I would like to ask the panel whether they see opportunities or examples which we, or I personally, may not be aware of.
Okay, thank you very much, George, for that question. Does any of the panel members want to answer one or the other question, which are pretty interrelated?
Just to address a couple of those points, with the associations and the SMEs, I agree, we do need to reach out to the associations to some degree globally, and I think this happens at all levels. It's my belief as well that if we do build the structures, and especially if we get the large companies, when they begin, we've been hearing today about people putting pressure on our supply chains to go green. When those SMEs actually do receive that pressure, they need to go somewhere to receive the help, and I think the platforms can potentially provide that help to this. And I think that's very important. I think it's very important to build those structures, make sure they're effective, so they can provide that help. The association is very important. And George, just to your answer, at least from our perspective globally, there are a number of sectoral-wide initiatives. ICM, I believe it's ICMM, IPICA, and a few others in the oil and gas and mining sector. Sustainable tourism has a few. There are a number of other cross-sectoral associations which have been at previous meetings. I don't think too many of them were here. Again, we're trying to encourage that communication, but also encourage cross-sectoral dialogue. That's part of the thing that's missing, and that's where we're trying to encourage that with these platforms. But certainly, sector-based is very important. They do exist, and we need to just help encourage those further.
Mikko, did you want to answer?
Well, nothing very much to report. So SMEs are difficult in any sustainability-related issues. They need to find their own way, and it's the example of the bigger companies and the supply chains. So the customers are asking them to disclose something on their own sources of materials and so on. So that's the one of the most effective ways. And then, of course, industry associations are important, as I mentioned. So you just mentioned forestry, mining, and construction. So I believe into that approach.
So, I mean, from our perspective, IUCN, we work with some business associations. When there is a strong leadership at the CEO level, there is more likely to be change happening. So that's one of the elements. But we saw more innovation really sparking when you are able to gather different sectors around one theme. So the Natural Capital Coalition is an example of that, where it's trying to find a harmonized framework for natural capital, for a natural capital protocol, and then you're in a pre-competitive space. The same exercise we did on the aluminum stewardship, when you're looking at the whole value chain and you're bringing the producer all the way down to the consumer in one room, then you can trigger changes and actually set a standard where it forces people to be together, which traditionally are not together. Unfortunately, it's lunchtime and you will need to interact there. It will be very difficult to summarize this session, but hopefully Amy and all the others have listened carefully and you can take some of the take-home messages. But what we heard is we need to have a strong communications and clear messages to the various parties. And these messages will probably need to be adapted to who we are talking to. So when CBD talks to the parties, it's a different message than perhaps the platforms where they're talking to companies. What I also heard is leadership is clearly an important element, and we should be engaging where we see strong leadership being present. And we don't have yet a magic recipe for what we should be bringing to COP13. And I'm looking at our friends in Mexico, but hopefully over the next few weeks and months, we can cook up what are some of the elements that we need to bring to COP14. So I would like, if you can join me in thanking the panel for their insights and their input and being able to do it in a short period of time.